Hello, I'm Spencer Levy, Chairman of America's Research and Senior Economic Advisor at CBRE, and this is the Weekly Take, where we share our unique insights on what matters most in commercial real estate and the world at large. Today's guest is Lenny Beaudoin, the Executive Managing Director of Space Enablement Services at CBRE. Lenny, welcome.
Thank you, Spencer. It's good to be here.
Lenny, we are in a healthcare crisis, we are in an economic crisis, and in many respects, we are now in a crisis of space, including office, retail, and hotels. We're in a dilemma. What should our big occupier clients be doing right now to speed the people that they work with back to the office safely and efficiently?
I think there's three things, Spencer, that we're focused on presently. The first is understanding who needs to come back and why, and over what time frame. So being very smart about your return to work forecast. The second thing is to look critically at all of your facilities and operation to make sure that you've adhered to guidelines around safe minimum distances, suspended services, adjusted the routines in terms of how you're managing your facility to make sure that it's healthy and safe. And then lastly, educating your employees on what to expect and how to behave in the office. Etiquette and behavior, the way that we all work going forward, will be critically important so that we all remain safe together. But those three things I find are the top of the occupier agenda.
Well, Lenny, let's take that a little bit more close to home. What specifically are we doing here at CBRE to answer the same question?
Well, like every organization, we're thinking firstly about the health and well-being of every one of our employees. One of the things that we did very early in this, because we saw this play out across our global portfolio early. And so we put together experts from across every facet of our business. Some of those are very obvious, our real estate and facilities team, but also our security, our chief people office, our health safety experts. So we put together a broad group of experts. What we've learned in planning for this is the really hard work is being very detailed in how we think about each and every aspect. So what we're doing in that regard, we're thinking about the operations in each of our facilities. We're being very thoughtful about who is going to return to work and when, and also the services that we can provide to them to make sure that we have a health and safe environment to support them when they do come back to work.
How are people going to go back to work from the front door of their house to the front door of their office, commuting, everything that is involved from getting from home to office door, and how should employers be thinking about that aspect?
We have to look at the entire journey an employee makes. So, because they're thinking about, I leave my home, I commute to work, I go through a building lobby, into an elevator, and then into my office. And every aspect of that to them is one part of the journey, not separate things. And they want assurances that all of that is being addressed comprehensively. So thinking about what the safety conditions are as it relates to commuting and making sure that we all feel safe in that. When you come into buildings, what building operators are thinking about creating safe distance inside offices. When we get into elevators, wearing masks, creating separation, also preparing our people that it's going to take longer to get to work. We're all going to have to become comfortable with some inconveniences that we'll experience to make sure that we're managing staggered access into the office, that we're following known protocols around how to create safe distance, how they're screening and creating compliance across their entire building population. A building is a community of people, and making sure that everybody's playing by the same rules is of critical importance.
Lenny, if you have a client that recently built out their office space with a open office activity-based learning design, what are you telling them today? Do they have to make material changes to their space for the future?
Well, a question many are asking us is not only what are they going to do in the long term, but even in the near term. And the reality is, in the near term, as people begin to return to work, we are not seeing a lot of renovation or capital projects. People are staffing up with better services, more enhanced cleaning, augmenting the way work is performed in the office, changing some things, but not many. Now, as it relates to the long-term view, do I think there will be changes? Yes. But leading organizations who create great places for their employees to work, I don't see them reinventing those standards. People come to work to be together. We're still going to go to meetings in the future. We're still going to socialize in the office. I think what really will happen is we'll see an advent of new technologies to make that experience easier and safer, from touchless technologies in buildings, better access and monitoring controls in the way that we navigate both buildings and our spaces, and enhanced mechanical systems, janitorial services, and cleaning that will make us all feel confident that we're working in a safe and effective environment. But I think it's very early to say whether we're going to see systemic changes in the way we occupy space, because for many of us, when we go to work every day, the places that we work actually help us to be very effective.
Post 9/11, there were a lot of folks that were suggesting that they were afraid to go back into the big cities because of security risks. And we're hearing some of that talk today about density. Do you believe that?
I was on Wall Street on 9/11, and it shaped my worldview fairly profoundly. I became more comfortable with building security and airport security, but I still traveled. I still went to office buildings. I still lived my life. I think we're at a similar moment now, that as we see new technology, new methods of screening, new behaviors that we collectively adopt, we can all resume normal lives, both at work and in life. And to me, that's going to mean that we're all going to become more comfortable with some of the very things that we all became comfortable with after 9/11. We live in a distributed world, and we'll continue to commute and connect in different ways. We'll continue to work remotely and in offices. And I believe this new technology, these new solutions which help us stay connected and safe in buildings, will actually help us be more effective both at work and in life.
Many people are making the argument that there's been a, quote, secular shift in office use, that people aren't going to go back to the office. People aren't going to go back to the CBD that have high density. What do you think, Lenny?
I was talking to our colleague and friend Spencer yesterday, Brandon Ford, and he said this, which made me reflect coming into this conversation. Cities exist for a reason. People like to be a part of a community. They like the energy and the diversity, the creativity. An office to me is the same thing. Yes, when this passes, I believe people will return to work. They'll go to meetings, they'll gossip at the water cooler. At the same time, I do think we'll balance some of that work routine from home. And so I would remain optimistic that, like cities, offices will see a full permanent return to work when this crisis abates. I also think it's a time for all of us to pull together. So our partners in architecture, our partners in the way that we manage and clean and maintain facilities, broadly, the technologies that we use inside buildings, our relationships with landlords. This is a time when all of us have to pull together to provide a real solution to safe working in light of this pandemic.
How has the workplace changed 2 years from now, rather than the immediate changes that are going to be required to get us back in safely and soon?
I think we'll be looking at space design in a manner similar to how we think about space design today. We'll still be building places that people want to come together and work together in. Certainly, we'll see more touchless access. We'll see different environmental controls inside those buildings, easier, more convenient ways of procuring services, connecting with each other. But what will be different is the way that we access that space. Our choice to work in that location or in other places will only increase as our ability to create connectivity, as our ability to access each other, and our ability to navigate buildings and cities more effectively become realized in the advent of technology coming out of this pandemic.
Well, Lenny, we're talking about some very difficult issues, but we're talking about the great work that you're doing to try to make it better, get us back to the workplace faster and safer. But let me ask you, during this difficult time, what makes you hopeful? What have we learned? Tell our listeners something that's making you hopeful about what we're seeing during this very difficult period.
Well, I think certainly as we all had to shelter in place rapidly, and we saw how quickly we came back online, I think about living now in this 5G world and what it means in terms of happening now compared to what would have happened if this was 10 years ago and we spent our day on conference calls all day, or 20 years ago when we wouldn't have access to our work files or other information because we would be sitting on a server in our office. So for me, understanding and thinking about what the possibilities are of a much more distributed and fluid way of working in the future, giving us choice that when we come together and we're in buildings, we're in our workplaces working together, but having choices outside of that, I guess my optimism, Spencer, centers on the fact that we are resilient.
What's the first thing you're going to do when you go back into the office?
I'm just going to plan to spend time with my team. We all want to be back at work together. And so going back and just balancing my day where the moments that I have between all of the calls, all of the meetings, I can just catch back up with my colleagues. That's the part that I miss the most. I think that's the part that we all miss the most. And so I just look forward to that social connection to the community that we call our team and our workplace.
Well, thank you for joining us on the 5th episode of The Weekly Take, Lenny. And on behalf of CBRE, we look forward to seeing you in the office soon. For more information on this important topic, as well as insights about how this week's latest developments are impacting the commercial real estate industry, go to cbre.com/The Weekly Take. Until next week, I'm Spencer Levy. Be smart, be safe, be well.